think probably Johnny can attest to the fact because I've been in companies that's hired his companies before, so we all interact together. One of the cool things about penetration testing is social engineering and being able to break into physical facilities without getting caught. I've had guys that work for me say, "Hey, I'm on a run. Security's looking for me. I just got into this office, and I snatched the goodies, and I'm running out the back door." Right? So it's more. It's not just online. It's being able to talk to people and understand. Like we'll do things like we'll look at your LinkedIn profile, your Facebook profile. We'll see your high school yearbook online to build that social engineering test, and then we'll go talk to you and find out more information about your company and be able to get into your company to perform the testing that we were hired to do. And I'll let.
Yeah, it's also like to that point that was made earlier, the physical aspects. You may actually have to go out there and look at what are the controls around an ATM machine, right? Or a payment processing, like you swipe the credit card, now you got something on Apple Pay, and you want to do digital transactions that way, but you're interacting with a physical device, So there's a lot of things around that. What happens even at certain like a parking garage, can you hack the arm that lets you in and out and stuff like that? So the cybersecurity umbrella of things, let's call it that way, is very wide, and you can pretty much take away the cyber and you start with security at the basis, and that's what it used to be, just IT security. Now that you have that cyber, which is that overlay that says it's now in the digital world, but it starts from some physical place. So you talked about the data center, right? There's a whole lot of cyber controls that go into the building and the securing of that data center itself. What do you have to do when you actually enter the facility? So there's a lot of different ways you can address that. I would challenge everyone to start looking at the perception or what you think about cybersecurity as that label and starting to unpack that. I was having a conversation earlier, and the statement was like, it's like an onion, right? There's many, many layers. It truly is how the world used to think about cloud. Oh, everything is a cloud. And then we kind of find out it's more than, this mythical thing that stuff is in the cloud, right? So cyber is like that, but then on steroids, right? Because it covers cloud, it covers all these other different aspects. So just go deep, ask that question and investigate and be curious.
So let me challenge you this. How many of you guys have a cell phone? How many times have you gone out and your cell phone's almost dead? Where do you plug it in? So an outlet, are you sure? What if there's like a free Wi-Fi, free USB charger in the subway? Are you going to use that? Right. So there's some physical aspects to that because I could take control of your install malware and potentially exfiltrate data off your phone if you plug it into that USB. What about going to the doctor's office? You ever look around the doctor's office? Do you ever see the network ports? Do you notice them? You guys don't plug anything in anymore, right? Those data ports could be live. And so that could be another avenue for hackers to plug in and get full access to the network. So there is a lot of physical security involved with cybersecurity.
I'll start with two anecdotes. Previous company some years ago, we were doing a pen test and the client requested a physical pen test as well. I won't name the company because it would be really embarrassing for them, but it was actually a cybersecurity company that we were doing a pen test for. And our pen testers actually went out to their office in California. And as they were driving around the facility, they noticed this like second floor balcony with a sliding door. And these guys actually went to like the outdoor camping store and bought grappling hooks and came back and like actually literally scaled up and got into the sliding door that was open. And they were like, yeah, we got to the data center, great. So there's some cool stuff out there, but that's really niche. Here's a much more practical example, right? I was working with a hospital system not too long ago, a few years maybe, and they were fined a massive amount of money because they were putting PHI data just out in the open, right? They were just leaving it out on nursing stations or up on screens or not locking the computers, stuff like that. You know, one of those anecdotes is really cool and exciting, and sometimes we get really focused on the cool and exciting parts of security, but a lot of it is just boring stuff, like taking good hygiene and making sure that processes are followed. And at the physical level, that is where all of those things come together, because ultimately you can spend millions of dollars on security, you can buy all the stuff, have all the people, and if people don't follow the processes or they do the wrong things at that physical level, it's all for nothing. So it's definitely something to think about, but I don't think it's something that I would say, I mean, there is a market for going into physical testing like as a thing, but that's more of like a niche. I would think more broadly, how does it apply, you know, to the day-to-day operations of the business? How can we incorporate the security that we're doing on a technical level into that physical level, make sure people understand why it's important that they do those things.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Yeah, hi. So I have a question. So what do you enjoy most about your job in cybersecurity?
I think for me, it's that it is always changing. So there's always something new to learn. There's always something that's different. There's always something new. And I find that exciting because not every career has that. A lot of people do the same thing every day for their entire lives, and that's it. They never really learn anything new. It sounds dreadfully boring to me. The other side is because I'm on the sales side, I'm always traveling. So I've got clients in London and Germany. Next week we're going to Vegas. It's not a bad gig, and everything's paid for when you do that. So
Yeah, they just bring me along to pay for dinner. No, she's right. It's exciting. See how she just social engineered me? Now you know. That's right. No,
Sorry, Doug, before you say it, there's a couple people already online quoting. That guy at the top, his name is Matt. He's from Austin, Texas, and Sybil is from Dallas. This is the network that Cyversity has. These are people just like you that are tuned into this broadcast from Cyversity that's across the nation. You have a network of people that you can always see. Not only these from Florida, right? So it's somebody, Daryl's from Connecticut, she's from DC, I'm from Austin, Texas. So Cyversity, I'm from Brooklyn originally, but from Austin, Texas. Cyversity is just that big, and Cyversity has brought these folks together. All right? Sorry, Daryl. They have the ability to. Sir? Do they have the ability to answer questions? They can ask a question, but they'll type it. So I'll read it.
I enjoy my job because it's like she was saying, it's always changing, right? When you thought you knew everything about cyber, somebody does something that you go, wait, how did they do that? One of the perfect examples is we had I love the fact that we had a penetration test once, and everybody knew that we were doing it, and you know the guys were there. You know, you got these guys walking around. Everybody saw, oh, those are the pen test guys. So they locked everything down. They would lock their screen. But one of the application guys was using a Bluetooth mouse on. Anybody ever hear of a jiggler? Just moves the mouse to pretend like you're working. So he would have it moving, and the pen test guys hacked the signal from the mouse to his USB stick, took over his computer while he's away somewhere, and then that was their way in, right? So when you think that you've seen everything, I mean, there's this thing called a rubber ducky that's old now, where everybody knows what it is. It's a USB stick that you put in, and it runs malware code. But they've gotten so good that this one guy had it blow sprinkles out the end of it to litter all over the room, right? So all of that in microcode. Right? So it's fun just learning all of those things. And I still have a basement full of vinyl, so I'm still an analog guy too.
This is an interesting question because I've been on different sides of this business. When I started in this business, I was in-house IT, I was an engineer for many years. I was an architect at a global level for a big company. I was in management. Then I came over to the partner world, and I've done consulting practices. I've been in sales. I've seen a lot of different angles of this, and it really is important, I think, to align your personality to what you end up doing, because you'll have so much more fun that way. So I wish if I could go back, I would have probably gone down the sales road sooner. What I love about it is the freedom and flexibility, the ability to be really entrepreneurial, the ability to define the effort that you put in and be able to see, you know, a one-to-one correlation. I did this and I got paid for it. And that is a very, very different world than most people live in, where they just collect a paycheck every couple of weeks and it's the same paycheck. So it's a very interesting, dynamic kind of field. I love that. I was not really a school person, I'll be honest. I shouldn't say that out of college, but you kind of had to force me into the classroom, and I couldn't get out soon enough. So I love that I get to go and talk to people. I get to do different things every day. I'm never in the same place 2 days in a row. And to a large degree, I kind of get to structure and build my life around the things I have to do for work.
Comment on that. So there's a sales aspect, which I think we all have an appreciation for. As a founder and owner, it is a aspect of the job, right? I say it's the challenge. You wake up to a challenge every day. And if you're a problem solver by nature, I think that's where you would find a lot of success, because you're going to be challenged every day. You're going to get a new call that will come in that says, hey, I got something new, or I have another variation of an existing problem, or I need to do X, Y, Z. And you have to figure that out. How I'm going to do it in the best way that's going to serve the client, how I'm going to reduce my operational costs. So I'm going to do it, you know, the cheapest way potentially, or the fastest way. So being able to rise to that challenge every day is a crucial part of the business. And I think if your personality, to your point, aligns itself that way, great. But I will say that there are spaces, if you just want to turn a screwdriver, there's a role for you there too, right? You want to be heads down and you just want to code, you just want to, you know, figure out the hard, interesting problems. There's definitely a need and a desire for those roles. But just know that you want to try to figure out something that aligns to your personality and which you naturally gravitate to. And then you'll be happy, hopefully.
What I like about it, what keeps me excited, is that to me it feels like a game, because as these guys have said, everything evolves, right? And the attackers are always evolving, and our technologies evolve, and you're always trying to, you know, figure out how to protect what's important, either the organization or the data or patient information, maybe even patient lives. There's been cases where a cyber attack has, you know, impacted patient lives. So when I think about cybersecurity as, you know, probably the most technical person here, is building it as layers of protection. And if one layer breaks, what do I have in redundancy that will be able to protect against an attack, right? And so to me, architecting that in a way so that, one, it doesn't cost too much. Two, it's redundant and resilient. Three, it's innovative enough so that we're not, you know, we're leveraging AI because the attackers are leveraging AI. Trying to think about how they're going to attack us and then being able to build defenses against that. So, you know, to me, it's sort of like a big problem and a puzzle, and it never stops because everything, technology changes and the attacks change, the methods, the attack vectors, everything changes. And you know, like we said, the past 20 years ago, we didn't have half these technologies. Things weren't always connected, and now everything's always connected. You have as much power in your cell phone than I probably did in my first computer.
So this is the part where we actually put Margie to work. So Margie, you want to grab the mic?
I think this gentleman.
Okay, yeah.
Right here.
All right, we'll let you add the question and then
Okay.
we'll go on.
Good afternoon. My name is Shreel, and one of the panelists, I think it was Michael, he mentioned revolutions, and I think one of the biggest revolutions other than AI in the modern world would be quantum computing. I know he mentioned it as well. So my question is, how do you see the rise of quantum computing impact the landscape of the cybersecurity industry in the future?
So it's really interesting. I think quantum computing right now is very limited, right? Obviously. To my point earlier, though, it is impossible for me to know what the world will look like when all of you are at this point in your careers. I will say that it would be very interesting, and I've always kind of held it as personal belief that if and when quantum computing becomes stable enough and mass producible enough, I don't think you'll ever, or maybe not ever, but I don't think we're in any danger of seeing quantum computers on everybody's desktop. But in a more like industrial sort of sense, as a pod in a data center maybe, or something like that. Once you can marry, I think, these concepts around like LLMs and AI with a quantum computer, all bets are off. I mean, who knows? I can't even begin to fathom what the world will look like. We'll be in spaceships maybe. So that's a really interesting field, and I would definitely say to stay on top of it and keep your ears to the ground. There are a lot of really practical security implications as well in terms of cryptography and post-quantum cryptography and all of that. Cryptography was my worst domain on my CISSP exam, so I'm not your expert for that. But it's definitely something in the short term I think is worth looking into and being interested and curious about. And in the long term, who knows? It may never happen. It may happen in 10 years.
I don't know how to say this, but one of the things that I want you to be careful of is not push things out too far in the future, because just because we don't see it today doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? There's nation states out there that want to break our encryption for obvious reasons, and they may not even tell us. So it could already exist. They could already have broken our encryption. The entire Bitcoin blockchain could be broken. You don't know it. Wallets could be stolen. It's in their best interest not to tell you they broke it, because it would, the entire value of Bitcoin would fall. And so I think this is part of the interesting point where you can look forward to say, well, what if? And there is no bad what ifs, right? What if this is going to happen? How do we protect against it? And I don't know if there's a right answer, but you're the generation that has to come up with the solutions to that. And so just that you're asking that question, I think is great, because you're already thinking about it. I don't know what the answer is going to be, right? And I don't think any of us know, but you're going to have the solution for it.
So one of the things that as a hiring manager, one of the things that I do is when I look at a bunch of resumes, I look at not only certifications, but I look at the background to see what the people are doing, right? And what I tell people all the time is when you send your resume to a company, if you get called in for an interview, you've already passed. Now it comes down to personality. So now, Margie, we're going to pick some random people and in the audience and ask a basic question. You're in front of an interviewer, right? What is your superpower? What distinguishes you from the other person? So,
Young man over here, right here. You're looking away.
Well, I guess. Oh, yeah. Hi everyone. I'm Owen. I guess my superpower, I really like, as you said, building things. In my free time, I love to explore new technologies, and I also love making personal projects. So I like building robotics, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, all of you here are going to be interviewed at one point in your life. So this young lady right here, you want to stand up and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Alyssa, and my superpower will be I'm good at camouflaging, so I guess adapting to different situations. So I'm really good at handling small children as well as talking with adults. Yeah.
Don't hide your face. I've seen you.
I had a hunch I was gonna get picked. All right. Hi, Hi, my name is Miles, and I feel like I feel like my superpower would be I have good soft skills. I feel like I know how to communicate with people. I have a good speaking voice, and I feel like could be like that person that like can talk my way in and out of situations, especially like situations that I don't feel like the most comfortable with, or like if I see a person that like, hey, I want to connect with this person, I feel like this person would be good to like have in my network circle, kind of, and I feel like that's something I excel in.
I could take a lesson from you. Hi.
Hello, my name is Mohammed Haq, and one of my superpower would be to be calm. Basically, if I get an assignment or any project to do, if I can't do anything, if I need help, I would kindly and calmly ask my supervisor or adult to ask for help and try to solve it.
Great. I noticed that there were some questions on the board behind us. Sybil Carter Love. She said, "Happy birthday, Dow," from Oakland, California. And the question that she had is, what is one of the new exciting discovery every one of you have experienced lately that was a surprise? I'm just going to leave it as that because I don't have my glasses on. I have the wrong glasses with me. So they're asking the panel, what is one of the new exciting discovery any one of you have experienced lately that was a surprise? And I apologize, let me go over here. To your compiled knowledge and what was the new value to build upon? I'm assuming that she's asking someone from the panel that question.
I'll take it real first because it has to do with technology, but not necessarily. So as I said, in my spare time, I like to DJ. And one of the biggest things in technology now is being able to do all of the things that I had to do with vinyl on a little handheld computer. Being able to mix, to compile millions of songs, do stems, which is ripping out vocals, remixing masters, all of that, without having to lug vinyl up and down the stairs, right? So, and if you think about that, that's all AI, right? That's AI in music, right? And if you think about how that works and how that technology works, it's the same thing with coding. It's the same thing with making recipes for food. It's the same thing for, if you want to write a paper, right? So.
Can I stop for just 1 second? So we got our last panelist was able to get here today. This is Younes Luciano. He's a good friend of mine. He's also Chief Cybersecurity Risk Officer for Depositary.
It's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. And I just wanted to stop for a minute and then say that if you look at the board, you got somebody from Sybil's actually from Oakland, California. We've got other folks chiming in. I just want the folks online to know if you've got a question for any of the panelists, any of the entrepreneurs, cybersecurity experts from Netskope, sales individuals from ePlus, Morgan Franklin's two cybersecurity juggernauts, and Depositary Trust. Did I say Netskope? I sure did, right? That's first, right? and also UNESI asked questions. All operations and decision makers here ask a lot of questions and you'll get a lot of answers. This guy's got kids, so he understands what kids are like. So.
You guys are a lot of fun. Well, that's it. Ask me all the easy questions.
Well,
I know you're not shy.
it's not particularly cyber related, but I've been playing around with NFC tags a lot, trying to automate more parts of my life through that. So there's one next to my bed, so I can scan it. It automatically sets my alarms and my coffee maker for the morning. So just little things like that to make life easier.
We have a question right here first, and then I'll come in the back to you.
My name is Favorite Burner. Like circling back to like the AI topic, I know that like in AI you guys can experience hallucinations, meaning like it just goes random. One of the questions I have is that like I know it's kind of hard to prevent that, but who's kind of like responsible for that when that happens, and like how do you like repay for that? You know what I mean? Yeah. especially if the data of someone else using
Yeah,
gets,
no,
gets
I'll
shared with
start with
someone.
that. I think when you talk about hallucinations, bias, and things of that nature, it's all about how you're training your model, and not just your model, but where did you get, let's say, the underlying model. So you're, whether it's Llama 2, whether you're focused on Gemini, you're using some of the OpenAI ones, those models already come with pre-existing bias. So what you need to do is be able to query, right, or audit to ensure that bias doesn't exist. Most organizations today are working to create guardrails, as you know, within their models, but you can jailbreak. You heard about jailbreaking models. So you can do that. So the goal is, like everything else, technology was created for its intended use, but there are also a lot of unintended uses. That's where we have attackers, hackers, things of that nature. So think about not only how to expose bias as you're training your model, but how can you go back and ensure that bias doesn't exist? And for me, that's a continuous process. So just like the information that you guys learn, tomorrow might be the truth today, might be fallacy tomorrow. So always think about continuous improvement and continuous checks is how I would deal with bias or hallucinations in the models. Great question.
Yeah, one of the things that we're always worried about is poisoning the source, right? How I think a lot of these LLMs probably pull open source information off the internet to train their models. And so you said who's responsible for that? So if you're using the model, do you just take the information off of it blindly and believe it? No, you can't, right? And so I think the same thing is happening, would have to happen throughout to, whatever you're using the LLM for, because those hallucinations we know will happen. I know maybe that's a business opportunity. You go build some application that can take output from an LLM and fact check it, right? Where are we getting that information from? Is it believable? I think that's probably at the root of what you're asking, right? Because yeah, I think any nation state could poison an entire society by poisoning the LLM and have them believe something that may not be true.
Right. You know, this is a really interesting kind of it's kind of interesting. We got to my previous points about like the way that technology has evolved over time, right? And the way that we interface with technology. If you think about it, we take it just as a matter of course. Everything we do today, or 9 out of 10 things we do today, are on our phone, right? We only, as I say, I only pull out my big computer when I have big problems. With stuff I do on my phone. And that's a really interesting concept, because 20 years ago, that ability didn't exist, right? And so this kind of comes back to what I'm saying about we don't know what the world will look like. And I think a lot of the things that we're doing right now around AI haven't fully crystallized into what they're going to be in a long-standing sort of way. But I am pretty sure, just like you saw with virtualization, you saw with containerization, they created rules, workflows, positions, job functions that didn't exist before those technologies existed, right? And I think AI will do the same. And a lot of it around the AI is going to be, I think, putting guardrails around it, verifying the veracity of the outputs, making sure that the data going in and it's training the model is clean and scrubbed and hygienic, doesn't have PII in it, or it's not going to get you in trouble or get you breached. And then there's a lot of that stuff that I think people are doing right now. And I think over the long term, those are going to be more discretely defined job functions. But to your point, who's responsible for it? Right now, that's an evolving question. And I think that could be different from one company to the next. And we see this in some of the biggest companies in the world right now are trying to figure out, how do we use AI? How do we use AI? And even at that level, a lot of the use cases, 9 out of 10 use cases that get ideated for AI fail, because they're not profitable, they don't make an impact to the business, they aren't feasible, they're too much work, so on and so forth. How businesses continue to develop and evolve that sounds like an opportunity, for a role for somebody to have a job. Right?
Who is the person that said they're using AI to code? Like, you're the one, right? So let me spin it this way. How do you know that the AI is not putting malware into your code? How do you know the AI is not stealing code from somebody else to put into your code and set you up for copyright infringement. And then the third question is, how do you know that the code that you put into the AI isn't going to be recycled and used in somebody else's product? All things to think about, right?
So the question that you asked was, who's responsible? It's a really simple answer. You are, right? You are, right? Because with all LLMs, there's got to be a human that audits it to make sure that the built-in biases that we talked about, that they're not there, that you're not breaking some copyright law, that you're not doing something illegal and stealing somebody else's product. So there's always a human element. So you talk about AI, will it put you out of a job? Well, there's always going to have to be somebody to audit it. And one of my roles in the past, I worked in internal audit for a large company, and to introduce cyber technology to auditors. And the reason why we did that was because, just like, you know, you're a little kid and your parents came to check your room to make sure it was clean. Well, that happens in business too. When the auditors publish a schedule, everybody hides the stuff that they don't want the auditors to see. But if you introduce the technology that does continuous audit using cyber controls, then there's no hiding it anymore. So even if you do that with AI, somebody's got to take a look. So that person is you, right? If I tell you that hockey pucks are better to put on pizza than pepperoni, would you believe it? All right.
I wonder if in the future we're going to see more liabilities for people who are doing cybersecurity individually. I think long ago in the past, it was really only the organization they worked for that was held responsible. We've started seeing a shift now. CISOs can be fined directly if their company is in breach. And I just wonder if potentially down the road, it might be any cybersecurity professional, if you are found to be doing something that maybe you shouldn't be doing, or that is deemed to be irresponsible in some way, I predict that probably you will be held accountable in the future.
Hi, Shir again. What is one common or non-common misconception that the public or people going into the industry have about cybersecurity?
We don't all play Dungeons and Dragons.
I think we're all nerds and we sit in the closet and we don't DJ at bars on the weekend.
I would say what I said before about how tedious and boring most of this stuff is. You know, you think about the big exciting stuff and the hackers trying to get into systems. And so much of this is just trying to dupe your grandma into giving her social security number to a fake account. Like, I mean, a lot of this stuff is really low tech. And that is one of the big misconceptions. The kind of attacks that people, I think about in cybersecurity are actually so rare. Most of it is really low-level, boring, tedious stuff, applying patches and scanning for vulnerabilities and following change control and just doing the boring stuff.
Yeah, I think one of the misconceptions is, at least for you guys, is how hard it is to break into cyber. I've had a lot of conversations over the years where it's hard to get a job in the cyber. It's hard to break into the field. What do I do? Where do I start? And it's not hard. It's really not. You have to first start being curious, you know, going out there experimenting, but then applying some basic fundamental rules to your cyber journey as you would to your regular life, right? And I think that's a big thing, that, hey, I have to operate differently in this digital world than I do in the physical world. And it's not the case. The same controls that you would put on, you know, sharing your PIN number for your ATM or giving your credit card and just to your friend and say, hey, go have fun. You know, it's the same thing online and in a digital world, right? Apply the same physical constraints and rules and governance that you would have of your personal physical life into the digital space. Do that and you'll be good. But it's not hard to break into cyber. You just have to have the willingness to go and pursue the effort with real intention, right? And figure out what actually means something to you. Find your passion, find your path, and just keep going down that rabbit hole until you get happy.
I think the biggest misconception is that we all wear hoodies, and hacking is like this big cool thing. In all honesty, the largest amount of data is lost because of insiders, not from outsiders. It's lost because of misconfigurations. It's lost because we don't patch machines on time, or we have legacy machines that can't be patched. You'd be surprised, right? There's a lot of machines out there that just are outdated, still running a version of Windows that was around before you guys were born, especially in hospitals. Yeah. So I'd say a lot of that is just basic stuff that we could probably take care of, but it takes time, and it's not all exciting, cool movie stuff where you're being hacked or you're going to hack with some dark figure in a hoodie. It could just be somebody who didn't change the default password on their home router. Majority of people don't change their default passwords on their home router.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest misconception is that it's all about technology. And it turns out that cybersecurity is a multidisciplinary, and it affects all aspects of your organization, whether that is people, whether that's finance, whether it's marketing, whether it's human resources. It's much broader than technology. And I think if you go with the mind that it's all about the tech, you're going to miss out on a lot that this profession has in store for you and what it means for the organizations you ultimately go work for. I think I agree with the panelists here around that. First of all, it is hard, but it's also not hard. And like any other job you want or career you want for yourself, you have to have a passion for it. I've been doing this since I discovered cybersecurity at a conference in 1997, and I loved it. I loved every single minute of it. To this day, I enjoy it. And to me, it's not like having a job. So you need to make sure this is what you want to do. And the only way that you're going to find out is by moving forward and going at it. So make sure that it's something you want to do. And not just for cyber. That's with anything you do in your life. Make sure that is something that you're passionate about. And you'll never work a day in your life. You're always going to be excited about solving problems.
Hello, Thomas again. I don't know if any of you guys saw the new Mission Impossible movie by chance? No? Yeah. So the entity, right? This rogue artificial intelligence talking about AI. I wanted to ask what you guys think. If we continue to feed AI and we give it more information, can it down the line potentially become like dangerous?
Well, I think we've been seeing this since what was it, Terminator, right? That's Skynet. So there is that's a fear. That's a conversation that I have with a bunch of AI luminaries working for the big companies. You all know and hear of them. Remember last year? I don't know if you guys follow the news. Last year was a big battle inside OpenAI about control the board, try to kick out. It was bad, right? And the main concern was about is when we get to super artificial intelligence, is this thing going to figure out that humans are no good? And what does it mean? What is it going to do to us? So there's a concern in the industry right now. That's why guardrails, the hallucinations, the bias are all important. Because at some point, when we figure out quantum computing, which, by the way, if you're a nerd like me, there was a great announcement 2 weeks ago with Magic Gate. So now it's going to be a lot easier. So if you thought that quantum computing was going to be 10 years away, it's probably half that. So I feel that when we crack the quantum issue, when we have quantum advantage, some of you guys may know what that is. If not, look it up. When we get the quantum advantage, I think there's going to be a huge spike on super artificial intelligence. And the concerns are what happens when the machines can think for themselves.
And that is why whatever Sam Altman says, I always say please and thank you to ChatGPT. Make sure it knows who you are. No, but I think obviously, yeah, and I agree with that completely. And it's always good to hear that. I do agree with the quantum computer being the biggest, I think, to the point of that question, in my mind, the biggest risk that I can perceive to that. Yeah, because once you marry those two things together and you have a model that can sort of think and reason and learn, and a computer that can basically do all of the things simultaneously, I don't see how it doesn't get to a level of intelligence that could be scary. And yeah, that is definitely an ongoing conversation over my pay grade, but I'm as concerned as anybody about that as well.
Just hope you guys figure out sooner than later. One of the things I heard, so you're the only one, I didn't catch your name, the only one using AI for coding. I think all of y'all should be. We got two. That's not enough. I want everybody here to use it. Three things for me about if I were in your shoes right now, I was on that end of the table or that side of the room here, would be curious, be courageous, and be coachable. And you're gonna win if you have those three traits. And right now, you hear it everywhere. AI everywhere. I cannot even turn my computer on if it's not some AI stuff. You need to immerse yourself in it because you're gonna be the ones that are gonna change the world as we know it for all of us. So make sure that you keep that curiosity up and going. That, for me, that's one of the messages I want to make sure that you guys take from this panel today is to continue to be curious, to be courageous, and be coachable.
My name is Favor. Like, I think my last question. To like prevent stuff from happening, like let's say AI gets biased or something like that, would you guys consider like running AI like locally and stuff so that you could control like?
Yeah, that's already a possibility, but it has to be trained somewhere.
But a
So
lot of companies actually do that already. They don't run public versions of AI. They run a private version and they train it with their own technology so that it doesn't get poisoned by external forces. And Microsoft offers that as an option that you can buy from them. So it's a private version that they train the models themselves. I mean, fear of AI is nothing new. I mean, we talked about Terminator and Skynet, but before that, there was 2001: A Space Odyssey, where the computer was named HAL on purpose because HAL was one removed from IBM. If you didn't know that, that's why they named it HAL. So it goes way back to the 80s, the fear of AI. So we're going to get there, right? If people don't, unless you're in New Jersey, you don't get your gas pumped for you anymore. So technology advances and we adapt.
yeah, every model has a private instance or a business instance. It doesn't stop the hallucinations. So I'm using one right now. I won't say which one, but it has been hallucinating all week, and we've been trying to recoach it. But it's the same thing, right? You want to make sure that the output is going to be usable and true.
You have a question over here?
Hi, hello. My name's Maddie. I was just wondering, like, throughout your careers, what is one experience or story that you have that has kind of stuck with you, and why has it stuck with you?
I'll give you an example. I was working at a large company, and I think I made the assumption that this large company had it all figured out. I came in, really green-eyed and just starry-eyed, and I'm working for one of these great named companies, and they got it planned out, they got it mapped out, and all I got to do is ride the wave. And as I got, further along in the company, I started realizing that the people at the top didn't have it all figured out. And some of the ideas that I was surfacing, I thought or assumed that somebody somewhere at some point in time had already thought about this, planned it out, and I shouldn't even bring this forth. It would be a stupid question, right, to ask of management or senior leadership or whoever. Come to find out, it just didn't happen, right? They didn't have the answer to it. And as I had a chance to actually engage with some senior leadership, they were truthful and transparent and say, no, we didn't think about that. So there's a lot of assumptions that happen in business, and especially in large organizations, that somebody else has thought about it and actually have created the plan or have already mastered the art of understanding everything that this business needs to know, right? And you're just a nice worker and you're just trying to, fall in line. So I would say, always be curious, always ask the right question. And the right question means there's no stupid question, there's no dumb question. Ask the question, right? If it's not being surfaced up, ask it. And then I will also say my experience was as I started to become more vocal, because initially by nature I never self-promoted, right? So I just wanted to do good work, and I thought just based off of my merit, I would be recognized and I would naturally just move up in my career. That's not the case. you have to be your own champion. You have to actually put your name out there, build your own personal brand, because that's how you get recognized. And ask the questions, challenge yourself. And that's what I started to do more. And so those type of instances that I've experienced at these larger companies allowed me now as a owner to say, wait a second, I want to build in this culture from the start at this small organization. And I think everybody that has worked with us has been has had a better experience than having to go through those type of challenges of working in that corporate structure. So,
Yeah, I just wanted to, because I know that for cybersecurity, there's a lot of like new things going on and a lot of information that you're all taking in constantly. And I feel like that can get overwhelming at times. And I'm just wondering, how do you guys handle that? And just like kind of advice for
That's a
us.
great question. Yeah, that's actually you kind of took some of my answer actually out of my mouth there. And that's a very astute question actually, because I think it is one of the biggest challenges we have in cybersecurity is for whatever reason, cybersecurity is to some degree a victim of its own success. Right? It's become this big hot market. There's tons of companies out there. Does anybody actually know how many cybersecurity companies are out there? Anybody want to take a guess? Not millions, but there are over between 3,000 to 4,000 cybersecurity companies. To put that into perspective for you, okay, so a company like mine, we do about $3.5 billion of sales annually. We work across all these different areas of technology. If you came to us for networking or storage, there are maybe 6 to 10 companies that we would probably put in front of you. If you came to us for a phone system, there's maybe half a dozen options, right, or a collaboration system. When you get into cyber, there are thousands of companies. And the reality is a lot of them are features, not products. A lot of them are just their own hype machine and they're just trying to get VC money so they can make an exit real quick and get acquired by somebody. And a lot of it is not real solutioning. It's really just vaporware sometimes. So how do you cut through all that? How do you know? So when I came over from the in-house side to the sales side, to the partner community, and I was a pretty good technologist, and I thought, well, that's all you have to do is you just have to be a good technologist, and you have to know what all the things are, and this is what this tool does, and this is what that tool does. And there's a whole other set of skills to learn. And I think it is relevant to how you delineate between what's important and what's just noise. And that, to that point, I would say invest in your emotional intelligence, because you can be really smart at the technology, but if you can read a room and read people and rationalize, well, I hear what this person's saying, I hear what this company's saying, but then I'm watching what's actually happening on the ground or how somebody's reacting to it. Those are much more valuable skills than being able to explain how setting 562 can be applied 4 different ways depending on your use case. Fantastic. But at the end of the day, to your point, be aware of the soft skills. Be aware of keeping it simple, practical, understanding the business, whether you're in-house or you're selling to a business. Understand how that business uses technology to make money, and then does the thing that they are thinking of buying or developing or implementing, how does that either reduce their risk, make them more money, or make their operations more efficient, right? Or lower their costs. If you can't answer one of those questions, probably hype.
I think, Maddie, what I wanted to add to that was the second part of your question around how do we cope? I guess that's what I heard as humans with all the high stress, impactful decisions that we have to make. I'm a graduate of Brooklyn Poly. I guess now it's Tandon School of Engineering, and I can tell you that as an engineer and going through the ranks to where I'm at right now, I've worked for some of the largest companies in the world. The job is really difficult as you climb the ladder. It's difficult even in the entry levels. It's extremely difficult when you're making decisions about whether or not companies can subsist, dealing with ransomware, whether or not they're going to be able to make payroll next week. Like it gets really difficult. And some of those decisions, as I mentioned earlier, cyber is everything. It's not just technology. So we get pulled into almost every issue decision within an organization. So one thing for you guys early on in your careers, and even now in school, focus on harmony. And what that means, people always talk about work-life balance. There's no such thing. You need to harmonize what you do. And in order to be really good at making decisions, these very tough decisions, you have to be in a space of harmony. So that means you got to take care of yourself, mentally, physically, in all shapes and forms. Make sure that you as a human are in the top shape, because if you're going to have the top role, you need to be able to make sound decisions. So Maddie, that is something that specifically at the leadership levels, you see a lot of burnout for CISOs, chief executives, etc. There's a high level of burnout because of the harmonization that's required. And if outside of the 3 C's I talked about earlier, courageous, curious, and coachable, learn to find harmony now, because then it makes it easier. Some of us, myself included, had to learn those skills later on. So I would say make sure you're focusing on your inner harmony, and that will allow you to make those really difficult, tough decisions because you're in a harmonized space. So that's something that, I have kids your age. I tell them the same thing. With the amount of information coming at you, like, you have to be harmonized. You have to be happy. And that takes a lot of work. So it's a really insightful question, Maddie, and it's a big, big task for a lot of leaders today.
So, and I'd add to that, there's 2 parts to this, right? One, drop your ego if you have one, because you're not going to solve cybersecurity on your own, ever. You're going to need a lot of help, and you're going to need a team, and you're going to need, we talked about mentors and your network. Those are really important. But 2, on the flip side of that, you can never give up. So if you think you're not good enough, just remember, you can always get better. So keep pushing forward. And there's that fine balance of, hey, I'm going to learn this and I can learn it, versus I'm the best at this, right? You're never going to be, maybe one of you become really top of your class in technology, but you're always going to need a lot of help. So I would say drop the ego, but don't give up, and don't succumb to early failure. The other aspect, I think we mentioned this as well, was culture. One of the things I learned early is that money doesn't drive happiness. So everything that you've heard us say has been because we enjoy being here. We enjoy working. I put in some really long days, but it doesn't feel like work. Now, I could do the same thing at a different company where the culture sucks and they could pay a lot more money, but it doesn't matter. My life's going to be miserable, right? So I would say make sure now, find your passion, and then just go with it and evolve with the technologies, evolve with what's happening in whatever vertical you choose. Cybersecurity is across every vertical. And just keep having fun. Because if you're not having fun, then pick something else.
It's Amir Bristol again. I had a question about more soft skills other than technical. To kind of build off what you guys were saying. I feel like the smartest cybersecurity expert is probably somewhere sitting in their room and just doesn't know how to speak up. Like, how would you build up your soft skills and like learn how to talk to others to really get your ideas out and spread your ideas?
So I am a natural introvert. You wouldn't believe that from all the jokes I'm trying to crack here today, but I am. There was one of my early jobs, there was a program called Toastmasters. I don't know if that still exists. If it is, go at it. And there's so many ways today to get involved. I think you have to break the ice. I've seen your generation's really not there. You guys are really good at being out there, but do it in person, right? If you're interested in cybersecurity, join your local chapter of ISA, IC Square. They always need volunteers. Trust me, they need volunteers. And you get to hobnob and network with folks that may be able to help you. I think one of my panelists here mentioned networking. It's so important to do so. So I would say start there, and not only volunteering, but speaking. Pair up with someone there and do a presentation together. And you'll start seeing that, hey, this is not so difficult. And the way that I'm even doing it here, like I focus on one of y'all and I look at you and I talk to you, right? Samir, I'm looking at you right now. And just, it's like having a conversation with anybody. So I would say get those cobwebs away and be courageous. Get yourself out there. Once you're involved, you'll be surprised at how easily you can get the things that you want that are going to help you with your career. So be courageous, but you have to be in it. My mom always told me, nothing good is going to happen in your room. Get out of the house, right? If you want to meet people, you want to make connections, it has to happen outside. Get involved, Samir.
So I'm also naturally introverted, but Toastmasters helped me early in my career. I'm not gonna lie, right? Out there, when you guys are walking by my booth, there were some awkward handshakes. I won't look around the room, but there were some, I mean, you guys know who you are. How many times have you practiced like an introduction in person with a handshake? So these are things that you guys can work on.
I think ultimately you really need to make yourself uncomfortable now and put yourself out there as much as you can. So maybe you start speaking on a panel where you have other people to support you if your mind goes blank, because it can happen. But beyond that, when I first got into sales, I had a leader that forced us to present in front of our own team and then critique each other. And it was the most uncomfortable thing in the entire world, because it's all your friends that you work with, and they have to give you critiques on things that you can work on. And it's hard to hear sometimes, but I think asking for feedback, if you don't have a team that's going to give you feedback, asking for ways that you can improve and get better, like what did I do great? What did I not do great? If you can record yourself, whether you're presenting or just on a phone call, and listen back and listen to all the things that you could have maybe done better, and just think about it. There's always room for improvement. There's tons of free things online that you can watch and go through to get techniques that you can try to use. But a lot of it's just putting yourself out there.
So from the sales and the business perspective, it's all about relationships. And if you think about the things in your personal life that make good relationships, those things are going to hold true in business. If you're just meeting somebody and all you're doing is asking them a bunch of really boring interview kind of questions, what do they do? How long they've done that? It's boring, right? But if you get into an interesting conversation, right, and you uncover something that somebody's passionate about, or that they're interested in, or that they're really excited about, that's where friendship starts, right? And it's really the same in the business world. One of the biggest mistakes that people make in sales, in my opinion, is just talking too much. Ideally, the customer should be talking 75% of the time. And to that end, if you want specific advice, there are some techniques I would investigate, I would look into. I think just from a personal perspective, whatever your career is, but check out things like active listening. If you don't know what that is, active listening is a really important skill. Things like mirroring, labeling. Sometimes you would be surprised, even if you don't know the answer to something, and you just say the last 3 words that someone said to you back to them like a question, and they'll keep talking. Learn to manipulate those things. Learn that people are usually pretty uncomfortable with silence, and how you can use pauses and silence to affect the quality of what you're saying, or to influence somebody to give you a particular answer, or to get to the bottom of what you're trying to figure out. There's all sorts of stuff you can do. There's lots of resources out there, but I do agree it is one of the most important things you can learn, regardless of your career. Because however good of an engineer you are, however good you understand the technology, it's the people who are going to be relatable, the people who are, to your point, coachable. That is one of the most important words I think you can be. As a hiring manager, you don't have to know every single thing. What you have to know is that when I come to you and I try to tell you, give you feedback on what you need to do differently or better, that you're willing to accept that. And you're not going to fight with me or get defensive or think you know everything. I don't care how good of an engineer you are. I don't need that on the team, right? So check out those things for sure. And to the best of your ability, check out things like Toastmasters. Put yourself in uncomfortable situations. Do stuff you're not used to doing. And you'd be surprised how quick you can get comfortable with it.
And just to wrap it up, I think I told a few of you the story of a young man that did an internship for me at 2 different companies. His first internship, he went to UConn, graduated with double engineering degree, really smart. He did his internship with me, and it was the first one he did coding, nothing but coding. He was really good at it. The second one he came back, project management. He was so mad at me. He said, "Why? But I'm a coder. Why are you making me do project management?" I said, "Because you have to learn the soft skills." He learned the soft skills, My company made him a job offer. Another company made him a job offer. Neither one of us got him because Google snatched him up and moved him to California. And they said the reason why they hired him is because of his soft skills, right? He learned how to talk to people by just not doing coding. And you learn that. I mean, when I was in middle school, my history teacher took me to a New York Mets game because they never heard me scream, right? I ended up in college being president of my fraternity and, blah, blah, blah. And I speak at conferences all the time. So you learn those soft skills and don't be afraid to get in front of somebody, especially in an interview. If you stop talking in an interview, that opens the door for them to ask you something you don't know.
To that end, just a real quick follow-up on that. When you're interviewing, one of the cool things you can do, you go into an interview, and I think a lot of times, you're trying to qualify to that person that you're the person, and you want that job so badly, and it's going to be so great for the company if they hire you. To some degree, you should also put yourself in the mindset that they are going to benefit from hiring you, right? That they should also be qualifying themselves to you, right? Are they a culture fit? Are they a personality fit for you? Because you're going to bring what you bring to the table, and you're going to be authentic, and you're going to be out there, and you're going to put it out there for them. Put yourself in that mentality. Kind of flip the script a little bit. Don't get yourself so freaked out that you have to impress them. Make sure they understand that they have to impress you. And as somebody who has interviewed and hired a bunch of people in my life, that's true. Like, I want you to be engaged in the interview. I want you to be interested because I want to hire somebody who's genuinely, authentically excited to be there and feels like it's an alignment, because that is an employee that I'm not going to have to manage a lot. That's somebody that's going to be able to be more self-sufficient. They're not going to have as many problems. They're going to get along well with people. It's just going to be easier for everyone. So always remember that the company needs to impress you just as much as you need to impress them. And if there's a disparity there, that's not in balance, that might not be a good opportunity for you.
We have a question over here.
You guys have been,
I'm getting my exercise in.
There you go, Jeff. How many of you guys have been in any internship? What did you learn in that internship? What should you get up? Tell us who you are. My name is Adrian. My internship was for what I learned from that was it's very important to just get to know the people around you, because you never know, you might see where you can learn from them, but even they can learn from you, because everyone has their own perspective and different way of looking at it. What's next? Are you still there? What's next? Oh yeah, I'm still there for another year. What are you doing now? What are you doing now that's different than when you got started? A lot less like shadowing. I guess like do a little bit more stuff around it. Doesn't sound still gonna be hard, but there's still like a limit for what I'm doing. What you gonna do with it? I look to actually make some. Good enough. Nice. You really had this conversation. Introduce yourself to the group, to your colleagues, tell us what you're doing.
So, my name is Ryan Ginsberg. I'm a rising senior. So I had an internship last summer. It was a virtual internship for a company called Vantage AI. It was a small startup. And basically the whole point of the company was to design AI solutions. So what I learned during that summer was more like LLM machine learning tools, and I was coding for them. I made a web scraping project where, based on APIs, it would gather user posts and comments and design an LLM to talk like the user based on all of that. So that was kind of my summer and my internship.
What's next?
What's next is I tried AI machine learning. I wanted to see what else computer science had for me. I'm here now trying to learn about cybersecurity. I don't know exactly what I want to go into yet, but I look forward to figuring it out.
Get one of these guys and they'll tell you something. You need a mentor, right?
Yeah.
Hello.
Really important, Mr. Ginsberg, and that is enjoy the journey, folks. The journey is more enjoyable than the destination, because once you get there, it's gone in an instant. So enjoy the journey. Keep learning.
Hello, my name is Isabella. I had asked this question before during the fair, but I wanted to get everybody's input. What are more niche issues like in the cybersecurity realm and like research surrounding that specific issue?
So there are a lot, actually. Where do we start? I think some of the interesting ones are particularly in healthcare and manufacturing. There's a lot now around supply chain security. There's a lot around IoT security, biomedical devices, things that if you think about it, you can't traditionally put a CrowdStrike agent on. How do you keep them safe? And those are really have come up in the last few years. There's a whole industry now, I think, that's formed around IoT and biomedical and that kind of field. The other thing too, as we've kind of alluded to, with all these things happening now in AI and with data and privacy, regulatory concerns, boring, but regulations. There is an ocean of work to be done in terms of regulations, making sure companies are compliant with them and making sure that there are plans in place to execute on them, so on and so forth. Not sexy work, but very important.
I think the weakest link has nothing to do with technology per se. As all of us are security practitioners, we understand one of the growing areas is behavioral analysis and insider threat and understanding, human behavior. That's, most companies don't want their intellectual property stolen or leaked, right? So when you talk about where companies are focusing their time these days, a lot of it is in data protection.
Okay, we're starting to wrap up to the hour, but another personal thing that you all should take away is personal responsibility. We all make mistakes in life, okay? It has nothing to do with cybersecurity, it's just life. Own it. If you make a mistake, own it. Don't make excuses, because the last thing that people want to hear all the time is you make an excuse and not take responsibility for what you did or going to do. So that's what I would say, take away from this. And this is my first public speaking. I didn't think I could do it. And I have some I have some great mentors and friends and people that I've met networking. And they just basically said, just be yourself. So be yourself, okay? Don't overextend it. Don't overthink it. Because once you start doing that, you're going to start tripping over yourself. So, good luck.
So before you go, I know you guys, it's 4 o'clock. I just wanted to bring up one of our sponsors who helped support this whole effort. He's the New York chapter president for Cyversity here. I wanted him to come up for a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes and say something. Hayden, my counterpart here in New York, and just wanted to give him an opportunity to speak. But thank you guys for your patience, and I really thank you for your questions. Thank you.
Hi. This was my first time being part of this, and I must say it was very, one, informative, and two, very, I love the interactions. Being part of the sponsorship, Cyversity, I spoke to you, a number of you on this, and I think a couple of our panelists here spoke about that ability to network and get out there and meet people, meet professionals in the industry. All right, that's a very important thing, and that's something that we do specifically for women, underrepresented communities, and veterans. So, and we also think other organizations were mentioned. So it doesn't have to be Cyversity, but the networking aspect is very important. And there are a couple of things that was said here. Protection was one of them, being sort of the backbone of cybersecurity. Also, curiosity, big thing, being curious. And I think I mentioned to a few of you guys, one of the things that you can do that would really help you would be creating some sort of home lab, doing something home, breaking it, repairing it, finding out how to repair it, going and do that research. All right? So those are some of the main things that big takeaways from here. And please keep in touch with these guys, keep in touch with David, and build your network, because that's going to take you where you want to go, whether it's cybersecurity or engineering. We had a few engineers here, or aspiring engineers. So take those things with you. All right? Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.